Hello there and welcome to Community Life. Here we talk with the community experts about their life journeys and learn from each other. And today we have a conversations with Todd Nilson, a nature, gardening, food, and other curiosities photographer, not a supervillain yet, Rotarian, digital community strategist, and digital workplace architect. So hello, Todd.
Hello, Yuri. So good to see you. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm cool. Super happy to see you. And you already told me a little out of the record. So tell me, how much time do you spend outside every day?
I try to spend a little bit of time outside every day at least. My wife and I go for walks every morning if the weather is permitting. And we've got a pretty wide latitude about that because we live in Wisconsin, up along the northeastern coast. And it does get quite cold here sometimes, quite wintry, and we get bad weather, but we're out, rain or shine or snow, most of the time, provided that it's not treacherous to walk outside. So I would say we easily spend at least an hour outside a day, sometimes more, definitely a lot more time on the weekends. So we could talk a little bit about that.
What is the story behind this daily habit? How did you start it?
Wow, I think that we even started it back when we were living in Milwaukee. We walked everywhere. We thought it was really important to try to live close to where we worked. And so we lived in downtown Milwaukee for many years. And both of us walked to our places of work. And I think we just got in a walking habit, being around town and enjoyed it. And it was funny, like my wife is a faster walker than I am. And so like people would know her around town as the fast walker, But my legs are a little bit shorter, and so I don't move quite as fast. But we've always kind of been that way for years and years now. It's just been an ingrained habit, and we think it's just good for a healthy lifestyle to at least get out and be walking at a brisk pace for about an hour a day.
So how does it work? So she is somewhere out there and like, hey, wait for me.
No, she waits up for me. She's very kind. No, it's a good time. We get out, and it's a chance for us to just kind of be with each other and talk about sort of what our days are going to be like, or something that we're working on, or even just to kind of walk and enjoy the outdoors because we live in a very beautiful spot. We're not in a big city. We're in a town of about 11,000 people, so not huge, but not tiny either. And we're right by like a big national park, and I've literally got a beach directly outside of my front door here on Lake Michigan. So we get to enjoy all of that, and I feel bad for people that have those things next door to them and don't use them because they're incredible amenities for anyone to enjoy.
Yeah, totally. And what was the most unexpected meeting you had during your walk on the beach?
The most unexpected meeting?
Yeah, maybe it was some animals, maybe it was some people. I don't know. Like,
Wow,
you
we've
tell me.
seen so many interesting things along. Like, there's usually something new that comes out all the time. We've been, I think, particularly interested in sort of the birds and wildlife on the beach. And so like we've seen, certainly there's a lot of seagulls, but there are a lot of other kinds of seabirds, like plovers and there's a lot of different birds like herons and cranes will come around. So we enjoy seeing them when they come by. There's actually a really small hawk that we had seen, which was a really amazing little bird with beautiful colored feathers out there. I think it was a tercel hawk, I'm not sure. But probably one of the most interesting or unusual ones, the things that we didn't see, but we saw evidence of, that kind of freaked us out a little bit is we were out on the beach one summer morning, and we saw like these claw marks, in the beach, with like this clearly as a tail like going behind it. And we were like, what in the world is this thing? Like, it looked like some prehistoric beast had like hove itself up onto the shore and was just kind of like moving along in this sinuous motion along the beach. And I think we finally figured out it was maybe a muskrat or something like that, but it looked like this ancient lizard thing or like an alligator. There's no alligators in Wisconsin, but it was just a really strange moment of disconnection when you see something like that. You're like, what is this? It's just the most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I can only imagine that, like it's so
Yeah.
scary,
Yeah. But we've seen some other cool stuff like non-wildlife. Because this is a big, outdoor space, and we're right along a jogging trail. There's like bicyclists and joggers and people that are going by all the time. And there's actually like that come down along the lakeshore in the summers in particular, flying really low are these little ultralight planes. It's like basically like a little gas engine, flying a glider. And you'll see people sort of buzzing the lakeshore all the time with that. It's kind of fun.
And what was the strangest thing you found on the beach?
There's a lot of debris that you find, but like the strangest thing I've found, people like to make art along the beaches, and it's really interesting to see the kind of stuff that people will assemble there, just from like sticks and stones and just things that are found on the beach. So it's not uncommon to see people like take sticks, like long sticks, debris, like some rather large ones, and make like little teepees, like little teepee structures out of them, kind of peek them all together and like make these little monuments along the beach. But sometimes people go really elaborately around them. I've seen one of the really cool ones we saw last summer was somebody had done this elaborate ring of sticks around a rock that was like just at seating level. So imagine like sort of like on the beach, you've got this Game of Thrones throne sitting there, and like the sticks are all kind of peeking over this, and then beside it somebody had tucked in a dog-eared and marked copy of a book of Zen meditations from the West, and they just like kind of stuck it down there between the branches. It was a really cool thing. That was a strange thing to find. But the absolute strangest was somebody had set up like this weird altar on the beach with the sticks, and they kind of laid out some shells and rocks in this formation, and they had taken an old bird skull from like from a seagull, and they had stuck it on top of a stick. It was very weird, very, very weird.
You never know what happens on the beach on the night, So
well, what's so interesting to me though, like did it, and I know we're not talking specifically about community, but just sort of that community mindedness. Like we've had social media with us forever, because if you think about, people will go down to a beach and they'll express themselves, and they'll write messages on the sand, or they'll create art in the space, and that's a social medium if you think about it. And it's always fascinating to me the kinds of things that people want to share in those public spaces, and the kinds of art that they create there. It's never boring to go down to the beach.
Did you ever try to write a question on the sand and see if somebody will answer it?
No, we haven't done that. No. We've responded in one or two cases.
Okay. What was this question about?
Boy, I don't even remember. Yeah, I'm going to be boring. I don't even remember what it was about, but I think somebody had said something political, and we said something sarcastic back to them. Because we're like, I don't want that on my beach, but.
Got it. Okay, yep. So let's start from the beginning. Tell me about your parents. Who are they?
Yeah, so my parents are David and Marlene Nilson, and my dad passed away a couple of years ago. My mom is still with us. She's living in an assisted living place nearby me. But my dad was, he grew up as part of a large farm family in central Pennsylvania. And then he met my mom, and they lived in Western Pennsylvania, where they raised me. And he was a welder by trade. He was a very good welder. And my mom, before I knew her, she had trained to be a secretary with accounting skills, and had worked in Pittsburgh. but she kept house and raised me, through my childhood years up into college, and they were both terrific, generous, hearted people, and my mom still is. But I was actually adopted, so I was an only child. My mom had lost a couple of babies before I came along, and then they adopted me and gave me nothing but a good, structured upbringing. Got to do everything that I wanted to try to do, and somehow managed not to be spoiled, I think, in that. But they were super great parents. I couldn't have asked for any better parents in the world.
What was the thing you remember you tried, and what worked out and what did not?
Let's see. Something I tried that worked out and something I tried that didn't work out. You're talking about like when I was growing up, or?
Yeah, while growing up.
Let's see. So something I tried that didn't work out. Riding a bicycle did not work out very well for me. I had a very checkered past with bicycles. I still remember. So I lived on a street that was kind of like a bowl. At either end there was a hill, and we actually lived down at the bottom of the street. And of course there were culverts and drains down there for the rainwater. And so when I was a kid and I got my bike, I was so excited. I got out and it was on this perfect, it was a great street. You could kind of go up and down, back and forth across there. Unfortunately, there was a grate at the bottom on the one side of the street, and it was about yay wide, the gaps in it. And unfortunately, I miscalculated how wide my tire was on the bike, went down into the grate, flipped over the handlebars. And I wasn't badly hurt, but I was skinned up pretty good. And so that was something that didn't work out so well for me. And I think it always kind of colored my view of bicycling. And so, like, as much as I had a bike growing up, it wasn't the sort of thing where I'd be like, "Hey, Mom, I'm going out, to ride around the neighborhood," or anything like that. I just didn't care to do it that much because I was scared of killing myself.
Totally.
And something that worked out, let's see. I mean, there was a lot of things that I did that worked out as a kid. One of the stranger or more maybe interesting pieces of trivia that I'll share with you is when I was growing up and I would see on television, Fred Astaire or Gene Kelly or any of a number of dancers, I would get up as a little kid and I would dance around, and my parents finally said, "Well, do you think you'd want to try dance classes?" And I said, "Sure." I said I would do that. And so I went to a local dance studio, and they had like tryouts and everything. And they picked me, to join a class. And so I started taking tap dancing at a very early age. And that grew into a love of dance. I did. So I've done tap, jazz, modern, ballet, ballroom, and I don't dance a lot these days, but I have a deep and abiding love of dance and dancers and performance, and that I think I've brought a lot of those lessons from being on stage and having to act with poise and recognizing that everything is a kind of a performance to my professional life, and that's put me in good stead, over many years. So I think I would say, yeah, that worked out. I really enjoyed my time as a dancer and performing and being in musical theater and doing all those kinds of things was very satisfying to be involved with.
Does your wife like dancing?
She's not a big dancer, no. Yeah, I mean, we'll dance in the privacy of our own home, but we don't generally do much public dancing around. So so that's just one of our different. She's a great musician. She actually plays classical guitar, and it is quite good. But that's not something. That's one of the things where a marriage has a lot of different interests, and sometimes they overlap and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, I saw your photo with a guitar too. So do you play guitar?
No, I don't. I was just goofing around.
It was just posing for the camera. I understand.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my musical background was I learned to play clarinet, and then I played tenor saxophone, baritone sax. So I did that just through high school, but I never continued with it beyond the high school years.
Out of those books on your stand behind you, what is your favorite one?
Oh, wow. Hmm. I don't know that my favorite one is here. Yeah, the one that I'm reading right now, and it's not so much reading, but is a role-playing game book. This is the index card role-playing game, which, if you want to think about it as a Dungeons and Dragons alternative, it's a newish independent creator book, but like really, fun, incredible illustrations in there, and very nicely written. And I'm enjoying it because it's such a nicely put together book, and I like. My wife and I used to have tons and tons of books. Like we had bookshelves. Like we still have a lot of books, but we've really winnowed down our collection in more recent years to stuff that's more rare or unusual kinds of stuff, because you can have so much electronically now. Like, why would I bother keeping a copy of, Shakespeare's plays when I can get them online, super easily if I want to read them. So I'm interested in like nice, pretty books that also have, or something that's just I wouldn't be able to find, usually. So we could talk books for an entire hour, but
Just one more question about books.
yeah.
How did you get this book?
This book I ordered online through the organization's website. It's runehammer.online for any of you who are gamers and are interested in that. But I'm a lifetime committed tabletop role-playing game fanatic, and make no bones about it in my professional career either. I'm a fully mixed personality where it's all out there, to see. But yeah, I like independent creators. I like people that are doing really creative things in the hobby right now, and not so much a fan of the big corporate versions of the world's most famous role-playing game out there. But we could talk about that at some length too.
When did you start your role-playing game journey?
I want to say it was 1980. I got a boxed set of the Dungeons and Dragons role-playing game from my mother, weirdly enough. And I tease her about this incessantly over the years, because she had really kind of a dislike-hate relationship with the game, because my dad and I played it forever. He was my first buddy, to be playing. But yeah, 1980 started playing, and never really had any serious breaks from playing the game since then. I am a dedicated hobbyist, if anything.
I can tell, and how Dungeons and Dragons game impacted your life?
Wow, profoundly. So if you check my feed for Clock Tower Advisors, I did a conversation sometime last year with a guy by the name of Josh Selesnik, who is running D&D in corporate settings for trust and team building. And he and I talked a lot about communities versus, community building versus, gaming. I think there's a lot of relationship between somebody being a host at a table and bringing people in to work with each other and solve problems, and the kinds of things we do as community builders. And so I see a lot of correspondences every day with the kinds of things that I do as my creative hobby outlet, and then how those lessons translate into my professional life. But I would say more generically, in terms of map making, in terms of a passion for history, in terms of an interest in how people interact with each other, how improv works. You get so many things from a creative hobby like that play out in your life in other sorts of ways. And even the idea of role playing as an approach is, I think, something that's so important for everybody to try, because it is a way to experiment with identity in different ways. And you can express different parts of yourself. You can explore things in a safe environment, and whatever you learn in those play environments can bleed over into your personal life, and those can become things that you adopt, for your own day-to-day personality. They're attributes or traits that may come a little bit more to the fore. So I owe the game a great debt, for many reasons, and that's just a tip of the iceberg conversation about it. But I will say that I would not be who I am without role-playing games.
Name one thing you've personally adapted to your day-to-day life out of the game.
I think for me, it was learning a little greater assertiveness in what I do, and recognizing that sometimes a more direct approach is better, and especially, like, I think as a consultant, a lot of times I have to deliver information that a customer may not be looking forward to hearing. But sometimes you just need to directly say, I don't think your approach to community is going to be successful, in this case, and here's what I think you can do about it. And I think having that direct approach is important. So I think, like, in game terms, what that was for me was playing characters that are a little bit more impetuous than I normally am. I am usually a very careful, calculating person as I look at all of my interactions, and as I sort of plan my day and do things. I'm a planner and a strategist at heart, but sometimes the essence of a good strategy is to act.
What was the craziest thing you've done recently without thinking about it?
I don't really do crazy.
I'm always planning, yes.
Yeah. I usually reserve my crazy for my playtime, but I live a very stable existence, and that's been by design. Really for the past 7 years that I've owned, Clock Tower, it's all been calculated to be, a good, stable, business source of income, opportunity to grow, and I don't do a lot of crazy chances. I'd say, like, as crazy as I get, it's always a calculated risk. So, like, I've brought in a couple of people working with me on a contract basis with my company. Again, that's calculated. I didn't bring them in as employees because there's risk and volatility in consulting. I brought in a virtual assistant, to help me, Kalisa Mikkel, who's amazing. And that was, for me, kind of a crazy departure, because I never thought that I needed that help, but I've kind of grown to the point where I did, and I'm glad I did it. But so you're sort of like, oh yeah, this is really crazy stuff, and you'd be right.
I've never been doing like that, because all people have different levels of craziness. So that's exactly what I wanted to know about you. And tell me about game nights. How frequently do you have game nights?
So I run a game virtually via Facebook every 2 weeks of Dungeons and Dragons. I have people who've played that game from across the world. It's a group of, I created a Facebook group, and there's about, 70 people in it, I'm guessing. But there's a core group of players that come back every 2 weeks. And I'd say at my maximum, I've had about 10 players at a time in the game, which anybody who's ever run the game will be like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. There's my crazy. That having a large group of players around the table it becomes a burden to run for that many people, because if you think of them all as improv actors on the stage, you need to give a spotlight to everybody during the course of a story. And so that becomes a little bit challenging. But Yeah, for the last, I'm saying going on about 2 years now, I've been running a game pretty regularly, every 2 weeks, couple hours. It's not super long sessions like when I was a kid, when I could play like an 8 hour overnight session, and everybody's like got Dorito and Mountain Dew hangovers the next morning. Uh, you know, but yeah, it's quite enjoyable. Total creative outlet for me. Playing an older version of the game, actually. I don't play the latest 5e version currently, although I have played it. And I could get quite nerdy about the niceties between the different editions of the game, because I've been playing it for so darn long. I know all the differences.
And how much time do you prepare for game nights?
More than I should, and less than you would think. So surprisingly, like I think anybody that's ever kind of been the host to a party will relate to this, that you spend more time preparing than you probably needed to spend preparing. And that's exactly the case when you're running a game for other people. Like you set up, it's not like writing a novel, because a novel, what all the characters are going to do. This is setting up a series of situations where you don't know what they're going to do. And part of the entertainment is, if you're running the game, you don't know what your players are going to do in the game. And so you're setting up a series of situations or problems that you don't necessarily know how they're going to fix. And they may do something that completely throws you off. And you need to be good enough as an improvisationalist to roll with it if you didn't have prepared, for it. But I think for me, it's a fun exercise, because you get to look around corners and think about like, well, what would I do in this situation? Or what are the different things that this group of people, like knowing them, how I know them, how are they going to act? So I'll maybe spend a couple of hours in advance of the game, kind of thinking about it. Like usually like the weekend before, I'll spend some time. Like right now, my players are in the middle of a war between two empires, and figuring out like what an invading army is going to do, like what their tactics and approach are going to be, and like how the players will fit into that moment of warfare is very interesting to think through.
How good are you in predicting what they will do?
I'm not bad. I'm seldom so shocked that I would not know what to do. Like I don't think I've ever, in the course of running a game, had somebody say that they're going to follow a certain course of action, and I didn't know how I'd respond to it, because I've been running games long enough that you create characters and you create situations, and if you know how those things are going to play out or how they're going to act, somebody can give you basically any action, and then you maybe just need to think a moment, and how things are going to play out in that scenario. My game before D&D was chess, and I like looking down the road and thinking about how things may play out, and I'm an okay chess player. I'm not a chess master by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm usually good enough that I can see around enough corners where people are going to probably go.
Do you still play chess from time to time?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, from time to time. I fall in and out of love with it. It's a great game. It's just the level of abstraction sometimes leaves me a little bit cold. But I do enjoy playing. I sometimes watch some of the chess games on YouTube, and like think about different approaches, to play, and I've played some interesting variants as well. Bughouse chess is kind of fun, where you're playing off of two boards, and a piece that goes from one board can go onto the other board when it gets taken. So there's some really fun variations of that. But as you can tell, like by virtue of me saying that, I kind of fight against the strictures of the game, because I want to innovate it and change it in different ways, which is again why I like the broader hobby of tabletop gaming.
Yeah. And in your opinion, what is the most crucial skill to play good chess?
Wow, that's interesting. I would say think patience is good, and a recognition of some of the core basics that, I'm gonna sound stupid to anybody that plays chess on a regular basis, but I think like control of the center squares is such a key thing in the game, and sort of being aware of that is what I see as a difference between somebody that's kind of new to the game and somebody that's more experienced and is a worthy opponent in it. And so sort of the patience and understanding of like what are the key elements to be successful in the game.
I'll give you a little context for this question. I've recently seen the video of some grossmeister who is coming to his table like in less 10 seconds before he had to finish his move, and his opponent is sitting like waiting for him, and he's not showing up, and then he's showing up like 10 seconds before his last move, and just like that he keeps winning and winning and winning. So the opponent is waiting, and he's like showing up like 10 seconds before he's going doing his first move, and then like
that's amazing.
Crazy.
Yeah, you see some of those chess masters, like they're able to instantly assess a board and actually, like, I mean, I don't know if you've watched there's the Netflix series I can't remember her name. Oh, it was called Gambit, or Queen's Gambit, I think. Great series, a lot of fun. But like sort of that whole idea of like that world of chess where they're studying like the different patterns of play, all the different combinations. And like I've never, gone that far into the game, but I have tremendous respect for the people that have internalized all that, and they're so good, or they're so innately intuitive about understanding the board that they can look at a board for like a couple of seconds and recognize what the situation is, says, oh, clearly I need to move the knight here, or I'll be in check in 5 moves or something like that. That's an incredible talent to be able to see that far ahead.
I don't know. For me, those people are kind of from another planet. They have a totally different type of mind, and I can't even imagine. They're supercomputers. So, Todd, tell me the story of the stone tower you've built in December.
It was a whim. I think I maybe saw online, some people that were just sort of stacking stones. Not at our house here on the lakeshore, but at my father-in-law's place, which is a little further inshore. We've got about 15 acres, out there. By our garden, and actually out in back, we've got, there's a lot of stones that show up, because we've got farmers and fields out there. And so on a whim, I started stacking stones, and just kind of a thing, a creative impulse. I don't know what you want to call it, but just to see like how hard is it to do, and it's like not as hard as you would think it is to do it. But what's fascinating to me is like how long the stones stay in position. So I've stacked like stones maybe about this large, but like put them up on end, and you stack like 4 or 5, getting 4 or 5 stacked like that. And even though they look really precarious, if you get a couple of them sort of balanced with each other, they're quite sturdy. And so like even in wind or rain or like difficult weather, they tend to just kind of stay there for months at a time. And so anyways, I've been a little bit decorative. It's just something I started doing lately, and it just seemed like a fun thing to photograph. So there's no deep philosophical Zen moment involved with doing it. Although I should have said, I'm very peaceful.
But since you told that you've just started, so how many towers do you have?
I think I've maybe got about 3 or 4. I haven't really done many. There's a really cool video of a guy on YouTube that's been stacking like for years. I think he's out in Denver, and they did a special on him on CBS Sunday Morning. So if you search YouTube for it, you'll find it. But he basically like does these stacks of stones in a stream bed.
Hmm.
and where it's like icy, and like he does the most precarious balancing acts of stone on stone. It's just, you look at it and you're like, how does he even do that? It's just crazy. But you have to admire the skill of somebody that does that, just like somebody that makes an amazing Lego construction, or it's a creative impulse, and it's just kind of fun to see how people express themselves.
Yeah, it's constant work and it's hard work, I guess.
Yeah,
So
yeah, totally.
what can you compare the taste of water after using a Roving Blue ozone pen to?
You've been looking at my recent stuff. Yeah. So there is a Wisconsin-based entrepreneur, a woman who founded this company called Roving Blue, and she uses this ionization process to purify water. And she's actually got this crazy pen, like literally it's the size of a pen, and you unscrew the top and there's this metal bar on there, and you basically turn it on, you stick it in a glass of water, like 8 to 16 ounces, and you stir it around. It creates all these little bubbles in there, but it basically kills organisms in the water. So if like you're a camper, something like that, and you don't have a great water supply, or you're kind of in a survival situation, man, it's like a really cool thing to be able to have, because you can drink safe water and not worry about getting giardia or a bunch of other kinds of parasites or things in there. I have to tell you, it is so new. You've seen this so new. We've only just tried it for the first time, and we didn't drink the water, because you have to prime the pen when you first use it to make sure that any chemicals get off of it. So we used it, but we haven't tried the water with it yet.
Okay.
But I will tell you what's really cool when you use it, like you can smell the ozone that comes up from it. It smells like a rainstorm had just happened. It's really kind of very pretty when you use it. So I will have to get back to you and let you know what the water tastes like. It's probably just tasteless and odorless, because that's kind of the point of using it.
It sounds amazing. Rainstorm in a glass of water.
Isn't that cool? Yeah.
Totally. So tell me, how many Christmas decorations do you have?
Oh my goodness. Not as many as you'd think. I perhaps have an obsession with photographing them, but I enjoy the Christmas season, and it's nice to take pictures of some of the ornaments from time to time, and I try to lean into whatever season we happen to be in. So we really don't have tons of them, but I think the ones that we have, we've curated over the years, and we're very, very fond of each of them as a piece. I will tell you, I have a cousin she lives in northern Pennsylvania, and she's got a crazy number of decorations. Like she's got like I think she's got like a half a house that she lives in, and she has about 13 Christmas trees that she puts up every year in the house, and they each have like different themes of decorations. Like she's got like a Wizard of Oz tree, and like all kinds of different examples of different Christmas trees. She's got an aluminum Christmas tree, and like so like, yeah, I don't even bear mentioning in terms of some people's collection abilities.
Do you create different installations every year?
I try to decorate a little bit differently, every year. Like we'll move the decorations around a little bit, and we've got like a little collection of angels that we'll sometimes put up on the fireplace mantelpiece, or get some other little figurines and stuff that we'll configure differently. I've always been a fan of kind of toys and sort of moving them around in different places, and just imagining situations. So I'll usually try to create any of those setups as a little bit of a story, just for my own amusement.
Do you buy some new ones every year, or just using what you already have?
Pre-COVID we did, but I think since the pandemic, we haven't really been out enough to buy that. I think we got like one new ornament this year, and I can't even tell you off the top of my head what it was. Yeah. But we'll probably get back to that, because we like to have a little something new every year to commemorate a year.
what can make you buy a new one?
What can make me buy
I mean,
a
like,
particular ornament?
yeah, how it must look like what it has to be for you to buy it.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a little bit unusual. I think every one that we pick, like I've got some fairly conventional kinds of Hallmark, kinds of ornaments. Like I've got a Batman and I've got a Marvin the Martian, and so like I'm not above, some kitschy, fun sorts of ornaments like that. But some of the more beautiful ones, like there's some Christmas bulbs and stuff like that are really very exquisite, that the design is something that's not a usual pattern of polka dots or stripes or whatever, like that they've actually put some care into the creation of it, and those are worth having. It's just nice to have something that you look at and you can actually admire the ornament for the ornament, and you don't have to like take a step back and see like, well, that ornament is pretty in the context of the whole tree. Like I'd rather have like a single pretty ornament that I can look at and appreciate on its own and see it sort of in the context of the whole tree. But wow, man, I've never really delved that philosophically into tree decoration before. So
Yeah, as Ilker told, like I am a community psychologist, so it's just the beginning. Okay, so talking about Batman, what is your favorite comic series?
I am a big Batman fan, and he's become a progressively more problematic character for me to love because he's a billionaire asshole,
Yeah.
white dude who goes out and beats up criminals, in the back alleys, and there's something deeply problematic about that. But I think like to make it a little bit less complicated view of it. I like the character because he's a human, even though he's an improbable human being. Like he's not an alien from another planet. He's not, bitten by a radioactive spider. Like he's basically somebody that had, at his heart, he's somebody who had a really bad day, and as a result, he chose to make himself into something better. And I like that message. I think that's at the heart of what makes the character good, and my favorite author, and there are a lot of really good Batman writers out there that write the comic books. But my favorite has been for a long time, Grant Morrison, a Scottish writer who's done a lot of really amazing stuff. And what I like about him is his way of recognizing the character. He did a long run on Batman, and basically was able to take like all the goofy stuff about the character from like the 60s, TV series and all that, as well as the serious grim stuff that happened, and be like, who is this character that's kind of combining all this weird stuff? And I think for the first time he brought that character together, to recognize like the ridiculous situations in which he finds himself in, but that, he's a really powerful example of how we deal with adversity and how we deal with crisis. One of my favorite lines about him is a couple of the other heroes are talking about him, and Batman's basically lost in time, and they thought he was dead, but they're trying to figure out where he's at. And I think Superman says, Batman's greatest superpower is that he survives. That's basically it. Like, you just can't kill the dude. I have a great deal of affection for that character and his messages, and he's also, I think, at least a tongue-in-cheek inspiration for me, for his work, for how he thinks strategically about situations. Even to the point of ridiculously, where there's a story in which basically he gets attacked at a psychological level, and they basically they take him out of Wayne Manor, and he's like on the streets, and like they whacked him out with this drug. And of course, Batman has a plan for it, because he had trained years before with these Zen masters to create a backup personality for himself. so that like even when everything was torn away, he still was able to rise up and be like a version of Batman that would still kick your ass. So it was fun to see that, and I like the latest movie of him, because I think it was probably the best done of the Batman movies so far. Even though it was kind of a long movie, I thought it was really, really good.
Have you ever thought about creating a second personality for you?
I think I do that every day, my friend. No.
Like a backup personality.
Yeah.
That sounds quite amazing.
Well, I think, I mean, in seriousness, I mean, when we engage in role-playing games, when you take on another persona or another personality, I think you draw strength from those characters, because you're able to take yourself out of yourself and say, well, how would this character act in that particular situation? I think there's strength in being able to divorce ourselves from the moment and from our personal context of where we are. And I think that's something that's an essential skill of being an empathetic human being and a good community manager for that matter.
Yeah, and as a community manager, what is your favorite dessert?
As a community manager,
Don't pay attention to the first part as a community manager. So just, what is your favorite dessert?
That's awesome. As a community manager, my favorite dessert is Tutti Frutti ice cream now. Man, I have a lot of favorite desserts. I really do. And my wife is an amazing baker. So
I can imagine. I saw those photos,
Yeah. My all-time favorite dessert comes around every Thanksgiving, which is an apple rum raisin pie. And weeks before, maybe even a month or two before we make the pie, we actually take a large batch of raisins and we soak them in rum for that entire time, so that they basically like blow up and they're soused, and then she bakes them in the pie. Ideally, that apple pie has like maybe 4 or 5 different kinds of apple in them, because that makes for like a really great flavor pie. And that's sort of like my all-time over the top, favorite dessert to have. But she makes so many different kinds that I'm extremely spoiled, I have to say.
And do you cook too?
To an extent, like I'm a decent maker of breakfast, but for me to cook dinner, I'm good at prepping. So like I'd be a good sous chef, but I'm not great at sort of like figuring out the timing for everything. Like I can follow a recipe, but like I don't hold a candle to my wife's work, because she's able to like look at a recipe and then she'll look at like 5 other recipes and she'll apply her experience and then she'll make something totally new based on it and be able to substitute out things. And I'm like, no, that blows my mind. I can't go there.
Yeah, I can feel that. I can feel that. I'm usually saying I'm good at eating, so
I am very good at eating. Yes, I'm with you, man.
Did you grow a Venus flytrap you once had as a Christmas present?
I never grew it. No.
Why?
Laziness. I don't know. It's interesting. Like if you read the instructions on a Venus flytrap, you get the seeds. You have to like keep them frozen for like a period of a couple of months, and then you got to plant. Like it just was way too fussy to mess with. I think I actually gave it away because I just didn't have time to mess with it. I like other kinds of gardening, but that was a little too much. I'm gonna have to probably do something similar though, because I want to propagate some cherry trees. We have a cherry tree that like had an incredible yield this year. Like, you get these big sort of work size buckets. We filled like several of them with cherries this year. Like we had to freeze them. There were so many that came off of this one tree. It was amazing. We just had just the right weather and whatever, and it was incredible. We'll probably never get that many off of it again, but we saved some of the pits from that, and you have to do something similar with them. Like you have to have them in winter cold for like the season, and then you plant them in the spring, and you get a starter off of that. So I'm going to try it, but I kind of missed leaving them outside. I left them down in my basement rather than fixing them. So I've got all kinds of little projects like that I like to do around growing things. I've got a little greenhouse area down in my basement that I grow, not wacky things, but like I've got some plants and stuff that I inherited from my dad, and I enjoy growing green things. It's just a source of great enjoyment for me.
And what is your favorite plant to grow?
Right now, like my favorite is my dad had a cactus that it was getting a little bit long in the tooth, getting a little old, and it was starting to sort of die back. And so I was able to take cuttings from the areas that were still green from it and transplant them. And now I have like two rather nice cacti that are growing from it. But ideally, I know that these cacti will get a nice red bloom on them. And I'm trying to figure out like how to get them to that point again where they get big enough and they start blooming, because when they've gotten the blooms before, they're huge, beautiful, showy blooms. And so that's sort of like my great quest right now with plants is I really want to get that cactus to bloom again. I think it'd be gorgeous. It hasn't bloomed in years, not since I moved it from my folks' house and brought it up to Wisconsin. I think there was a little bit of climate shock, because there's a bit of a climate difference between Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, and so we did a slower growing season and it's cooler here. But I'm hopeful. I think I can get maybe this summer. We'll see. You'll see it on Instagram if I'm able to get it to bloom.
Got it. So, what Super Bowl rings do you have?
I wish I did, but no, that was just me posing when I toured and met with the chief information officer from the Green Bay Packers, and he let me show off some rings on my fingers from the Super Bowls, which was kind of cool. That was very neat. I'm not a big sports guy, but that was still sort of a thrill to be able to do that.
Okay, I thought it was your rings, but yeah, it works too. So tell me, how much do you power your house with solar energy?
I would say, so not this house by the lakeshore, but at my father-in-law's house, which we built that house. We have two large solar arrays there that account for about 75% of our power generation that we do there. And we've had the house for over 12 years now. And so we've paid for the system in terms of the amount of money that's made. And the way that things are set up in the US, you get these credits that are basically like carbon offset credits that corporations can buy, that you can put them on a market in Washington, D.C. and basically get compensation for that. So through that's actually helped pay for the system. And then we've expanded it a little bit in more recent years. We got a battery system in place now that's set up in our garage, and it looks like a Star Trek set or something. But you basically go in there and it collects the power from the from the array, so that even if there's a power outage, you still have backup power for your major systems. So like your water pump and your heating, and some of your key outlets like microwave stove, refrigerator, stuff like that you could keep that going for quite some time. So we've actually got a really cool power backup system that's in place right now. But we're still connected to the grid. We still ended up selling some of that power back to the local power company. And, there's a lot of gamesmanship involved with, like, my father-in-law plays this stuff all the time. He'll work with like the local utility to like buy power from them during our low production times and to sell it back at our high production times. And there's like a whole crazy hobby around that I just don't care about that much, but he's enjoying it and he's doing really well on it.
It sounds like Wall Street tradings. So
It does. It kind of does, right?
Do you use a little free library along the Mariner's Trail?
I do. I do. Yeah, you've really been combing through the Instagram there. Yeah, in fact, there's a number of little free library boxes in the city of Two Rivers where I live, and yeah, there's some fun stuff there. I'll often, when I'm done with the book, I'll drop it in there, or if I see something cool, I'll pick it up. I recently read the Rum Diaries from Hunter Thompson. That I got out of the little free library, which was a great read. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, I really enjoy the fact that people have done those and have been doing things to encourage a love of reading, especially for young people. I think it's incredibly important.
Have you ever met some notes in books?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm a big defacer of books. I think that came from grad school, like especially literature or anything like that, or anything that I'm trying to wrap my head around. I have a tendency to print out and just annotate all over it, what the ideas are. Books, nicer books, I'm not going to deface, but certainly like textbooks or business books, I scribble like Adrian Spare's latest book, like I've got like notes in the margins, like, yes, I agree with this. And, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Or like little check marks. I've got my own little notation system that I use for all of that, like star for a good idea, or check mark for I agree, or double slash for my own comments. Yeah, I've been doing that for a long time. It's very deeply ingrained in my DNA.
It's fun. I also use a double slash for comments, and I know where it came from. So
it's like a coder thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's programming language. I guess it's C++ or something like that. So I always use this.
Yes. Yeah. You got to comment your code, right?
Yeah, totally. And once I saw you share this card, if you could work as an assistant to anyone for a year, who would you choose? So who would you choose?
Who would I choose? Wow. It would probably drive me nuts, but I would probably want to work with Gary Vaynerchuk. He kind of comes off with an asshole vibe, but I think he's actually a pretty nice guy. And I just like his no-nonsense approach to social and entrepreneurship. And I think he's somebody that if I hung out with long enough, I would learn a lot from him. I think that for a long time I thought Seth Godin, but I think everybody says Seth Godin. He's really good. I could see myself, I don't know that I would spend a full year with her, but I see like Amy Jo Kim. I like her thoughts around game thinking an awful lot. Or BJ Fogg would be pretty amazing to learn from for behavioral psychology. Any of those guys would be cool to just spend some time with and work as an assistant. Like even if it was like a 3-month internship, I think I'd learn a lot from that experience. That'd be fun. But it's weird. I have a weird relationship with mentors and sort of the mentoring idea. Like ever since I was a kid, like I was, you always think about sort of, you read in literature and you see in stories that there's sort of like the mentor and the student, relationship. You've got the Padawan and the Jedi Master and, all that stuff. And in my experience, that's never really been the case. The people that have set themselves up as mentors for me, I was inevitably disappointed by. And I always feel like we're better having mentors from literature and imaginary people than we are from, real life people. Because I think if you put anybody on too big of a pedestal, it's not healthy to do. And so I think I appreciate the best in people, but I don't think, well, certainly not at this point in my career, I'm not going to look at anybody else as a mentor in what I do. I will learn from others, but that feels like such an elevated, vaunted position for somebody to be in. And it's not a fair position to put somebody in either. And so I've shared probably more than I should have about my feelings on that topic, but I I don't think that whole mentor-mentee thing is a real thing.
It's fun, but in those movies and books, mentors are usually saying one sentence, and then like you have to figure out everything else by yourself. So
right.
they're
Mentors
not sitting with you, they're not talking to you, it's just like, let the power guide you. And like, what the hell does it mean?
Right.
And
what am I supposed to do about that? Right. Yeah, you gotta find your way.
So they're the best mentors, I guess.
My favorite example of a mentor is there was a comic book called Agents of Atlas. It was a little limited series for a while, and the antagonist in it was sort of like this dyed-in-the-wool Asian mastermind, villain, sort of like almost sort of this racial stereotype, kind of character. But they were playing it as like, yeah, we know this is a stereotype. Like they were being very self-conscious about it. But like it turned out that the guy who was the villain was actually trying to mentor the guy from the Agents of Atlas, and it was sort of this model of mentoring. Like it was like mentoring through antagonism. It's like, I'm going to make you a better hero by being a complete jerk to you.
You kind of reminded me. We just had saw this movie with my wife, Devil Wears Prada. And it was like kind of the same. So there was a director who mentoring, like, and like by being the baddest person ever, and like,
right.
And at the end of the movie, she was like smiling. Okay, I've done a good job. So, but it's not that fun,
It can go terribly wrong too. Like if you look in, again, I'm so steeped in comic book lore that it's going to probably make you sick of it. If anybody's reading this, I apologize, or watching this, I apologize. But the character The Flash has a character, Eobard Thawne, who's the reverse Flash, and he's always talking about, I'm going to make you a better hero, Flash, but he like does these terrible things to Flash through it, and it's like, no, you're not making me a better hero. You are a complete jerk. I'm going to, have to put you away forever. Antagonistic mentoring, I don't know that that's such a good thing in real life practice.
Yeah. And Todd, I wish to have the sky as the limit to our conversation, but time is the limit. So let's jump to the rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Okay.
Dawn or dusk?
Oh, dawn. Definitely love dawn.
Butterfly or spider?
Spider.
What are your favorite color and song?
Favorite color would be teal. I like teal a lot as a color. Favorite song would be Resist by Rush.
If you were a superhero, what superpower would you have?
The ability to survive.
Great superpower. Who do you learn from in the community world? Name just one person.
Oh, wow. That's hard.
Totally. It's super hard.
There's so many, but I will say Carrie Melissa Jones.
And name two people whose community life journey you are happy to hear about.
Whose community life journey?
Who I have to talk about like that, just like with you.
Oh my gosh. Well, have you talked to Jenny already? Jenny Wagle? Okay.
But it counts, it's the first.
Definitely Jenny. Have you had Adrian on the show?
Not yet.
Adrian Speyer would be great. Or I would also say Darren Guff. I think you would find him to be a very interesting conversation as well.
Got it. Thank you very much. And is there one question that I definitely should have asked you but didn't?
We've covered a lot of topics, and you've delved deeply into the nerd that is me. So I don't know that there's anything that you haven't brought up. I'll probably think of something once we're off the call, but yeah.
After every answer, I had this feeling like we are going just on the surface, because your every answer led to deeper and deeper conversation. I was like, oh my God, it's just only 1 hour. We can talk with Ted about all this stuff. So yeah, I just had this feeling. So get ready for the volume 2. I promise you, one day we'll dive deeper. So it's
Great.
just like the beginning. And yeah, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for telling all your stories. You know, you are very, like, you were telling about those asshole heroes, but you're totally the opposite. So you're one of the kindest people I've met, and it was such a great joy talking to you. So thank you very much for that.
Well, Yuri, I think that reflects back on you as well. I think you're a very kind-hearted person, and you were doing something essential and different for the community space that I truly appreciate. And I'm glad to know you a little bit better in the time that we've had, and I'm looking forward to knowing you better over the years, man. So thank you so much for inviting me to this.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your stories, and see you in the community world.